Close your eyes. Listen to Monday.com. Feel the sensation of an AI work platform. So flexible and intuitive, it feels like it was built just for you. Now open your eyes, go to Monday.com, start for free, and finally breathe.
From Estero, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. Creators of the 6 Pillars of Intimacy, I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the HUG hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about the 3 weekly rhythms that make marriages strong. Not dramatic gestures, not annual retreats, but the small, consistent habits that protect connection.
And John Maxwell had this to say about consistency. He said, small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. And I think as we talk about building extraordinary marriages, those great achievements that are gained slowly over time, that is what we're talking about. And, we are so excited to have all of our new listeners here at the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. We know that you've come looking for something, and we're honored and just blessed to have you here as part of the One family. And we start every episode with a hug. And a hug is an opportunity to celebrate what everyone that listens is doing, how they're being intentional about their marriage. And this hug came from a couple who messaged us. They were part of the marriage conference that we did in Louisiana a few weeks ago. And they said, what an extraordinary weekend with people who love Jesus and love others, the 2 greatest commandments. This weekend was focused on God's plan for marriage, but we aren't leaving it just for the weekend. We're building out our tools and a network of loving people who want to do marriage well.
That's awesome. Yeah. To those who invited us there, it was an amazing adventure and just an amazing time just hanging out with so many wonderful couples, many of them who never even heard of the One Extraordinary Marriage Show or anything that we had done. And so it was really awesome to just plant ourselves there in North Louisiana and get to know those amazing couples and excited for what they're doing. I mean, there was some really cool, a lot of heads nodding, some tears, a lot of hugging. It's awesome to jump into a community where there are marriages from 9 months to 44 years and everything in between, and you see them working through and looking at those 6 pillars and how can they put them to work in their marriage.
So amazing. And, as Tony said at the very top of this episode, we're talking about weekly rhythms that make marriages really strong. And if you've listened for any length of time, you have heard Tony say, be intentional and take action. I actually think that's probably going to end up on his, gravestone. Like I could see that, like mine's going to say beautiful wife and Tony's going to say, people just be intentional and take action.
Those are the 2 things we say most often, I think, here and have said for years and years and years. And honestly, when we go on guest podcasting shows and sharing, there will be something of the nature of a question of like, so what's one thing you would tell our audience? And Elisa will poke me, and I will say it pretty much every single time. Be intentional and take action.
It's always really fun when they ask me first, because I was like, well, since you've asked.
I know what Tony's going to say, so I'm going to use what Tony says.
I'm going to use Tony's. And, the reality is that you hear it over and over and over and over again. And it's a great reminder on a podcast, or for those of you that have been in a marriage conference, like you hear these words and you're like, yeah, yay, and everybody cheers. But what does it look like in real life, right? Where are you being intentional? How do you take action? Do you have the habits that will make your marriage successful? Are you consistent in specific areas of your marriage, being intentional, taking action in the areas that matter to your marriage? And like the question I ask a lot of my coaching clients is, what's your secret sauce? Which often, gets interesting looks. But if you think about it, like we spent 20 plus years in Southern California, in a home of, we used to be home of In-N-Out Burger. And, they're special sauce, right? Which, it adds flavor. It makes it unique. Like everybody knew you could get packets of it right there, but it was what made it unique and special.
Mm-hmm.
And that, thinking about that in terms of your marriage, what are the habits? What are the things that you do that make your marriage special, that make the two of you work? And I want to say, this is not the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could be sitting at a conference. You could be one of, tens of thousands of people listening to this podcast. And what makes your marriage run well has nuances that nobody else's marriage has. And, so a couple weeks ago, we asked the question on Instagram, right? Do you and your spouse have weekly habits that strengthen your marriage? And 17% of you said yes, and we're consistent. 38% said some, but not consistently. 39% said not really. And then 6% said, well, we used to. So if you look at that number, all of those numbers, there's only 17% of you that are doing it consistently, which leaves 83% not so much. And it's like, this is not a shame thing. This is just understanding that it's about the fact that rhythms, habits can be easy to lose or hard to even start sometimes. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you can get into this place, and this is what you guys said. We're too tired. Our calendar's overbooked. We don't really have a plan. Right? And so when you look at those three things, very importantly, too tired, overbooked calendar, and no clear plan, it's the fact that there's a lot of exhaustion going on. And we've been talking about this pretty consistently over the last few weeks. But there's also no structure. Mm-hmm. And what you need to know, and I'm telling you this as a marriage coach, like marriages don't usually fall apart because there's been like one, huge explosion that blew everything up. More often, a marriage will erode because of inconsistencies. And that can be, like we all want to like point to the big explosions and be like, that's the problem. No, the problem is all of the areas where the two of you weren't consistent that might have led or might be leading to something that's going to be an explosion. Mm-hmm. And I know from ourselves, like Tony and I have been married almost 30 years, you guys. Mm-hmm. Wow, you don't have to. This is like every once in a while, I really wish we were on video because when Tony just closed his eyes right now, like, wow.
I told you
I'm feeling the weight of the 30 years.
I told you the other day, beautiful, that 32 years of being with you.
Yes.
And I'm more in love now than when I first met you. And so I may have just said that like that, but deep down, I think we have done these weekly rhythms to strengthen our marriage for many years, to bring us to a point now where the highs and the lows can happen and we can ride them and know that we are strong. And so it just baffles my mind, I think, sometimes when you say 30 years. I think that's what it is. It's not that it's like, oh my gosh, it's been so long, or I wear that as a like, oh, we have longevity, but we have a crappy marriage, because I've said that at conferences and at times here even on the show, that a number's a number. I'd rather have that number coincide with the extraordinary than a number to be like, well, we have a number and it's been crappy all these years. I think 30 years just baffles me to think about what have we done in those years. Mm-hmm. And again, looking at weekly rhythms and what we were willing to do 18 years ago when we were looking at either getting a divorce right there and then, waiting till our youngest, Abby, would turn 18 and look at divorce then, or get radical. Mm-hmm. And it was in that moment that I think back and I go, my goodness, we were willing to get radical in our own lives. And I see the fruit of that now. And yes, we saw it then. We saw it in those 60 days. We saw something happen and change.
There was a consistency there. Absolutely.
And yet, even so, we still had to do things and learn and grow to be where we are today.
It's interesting because we have conversations with people, in person. We get your emails and your DMs. And, when we start having conversations around like, what's the one thing you wish you did weekly? And, we hear all kinds of things like date nights, sex.
Amen.
Check-in conversations, pray together. Other people will say things like, I wish we could go, and I hear this a lot in my coaching sessions, I wish we could go deeper than just the logistics.
I think that one is more of and we've been hearing this one a lot more. I believe this one is, we are not and I'm going to keep saying it, in a weekly rhythm where there is set time for us to go deeper. Everything is done in passing. It's two ships passing in the night type of stuff. And then when we do even have time, a TV goes on, a phone goes on, something goes on to distract us. And I think if we would just get away and put it on our calendar and go, okay, we're going to take 30 minutes to, just turn it all off. I do believe we could go deeper than just a logistical talk, but it takes effort. And it takes time. It takes being vulnerable. It takes being open. It takes some work to get to that point where I think most of us, when we try to stay committed to something, we don't see the gains in the first 1, 2, or 3 times. So we stop doing it. And I can raise my hand, folks. Like I'm preaching to myself here. And yet we need to go past the uncomfortable 3, 4th, 5th, 6th time. And we got to get into that 12th, 15th, 30th time to finally start seeing the gains so we can go deeper. And I liken it to, working out. When I first started lifting, after 3 lifts, I didn't have muscles. Like I was sore, but it wasn't until I hit 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, that I saw the true gains. And even then, there were times when I strained something, pulled something, didn't feel good, had to rest, had to take a step back, had to heal, and then step back in. And so to get deeper, we need to have that time on our calendars to do it.
Well, and I think, the key phrase there is it's not scheduling more stuff, it's scheduling time to go deeper, because some of the other things you threw out, that folks threw out and have shared with us is, cuddling. I want, I wish we had more time for vulnerability or devotions. A few folks have told us a lot recently, I just wish we had more intentional time, right? I wish we had more oral sex, walk and talks, just holding each other. And, what's interesting is that nobody, like Tony was saying, as we talk about the logistics, nobody ever says, geez, Tony and Elisa, I just wish I could spend more time talking to my spouse about all the to-do lists and the checklists and, all of the tasks that we have to do, because that would be awesome. I've coached a lot of people. That has never been uttered in a coaching session or at a conference or at a master class, right? People want more connection. And I was actually sharing this with some coaching clients the other day, because we were talking about, you could look at that list and it could be about needs and wants and, this is what I want, needs and want, this type of thing. But I looked at them and I realized that sometimes those types of words and even, what makes us strong it can just get muddled in our heads. And so you have to look at what are the rhythms that are going to give you more heart connection. What can I do? And it was such a beautiful moment between this couple a couple weeks ago when we were having this conversation. What can I do to connect to your heart? And how do we get a rhythm where our hearts are being connected and it's not just the tasks? And we want to talk about how to do that after this break.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today, and let us surprise you.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlie Cox. Join us on Disney Plus as we talk with the cast and crew of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
What haven't you gotten to do as Daredevil?
Be in the Avengers.
Charlie and Vincent came to play.
I get emotional when I think about it.
One of the great finales of any episode we've ever done.
We are going to play Truth or Daredevil.
What? Oh boy.
Fantastic.
You guys go hard, man.
Daredevil Born Again, official podcast, Tuesdays. And stream Season 2 of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus.
We're back. And, we've shared with you just recently in this conversation about, all of those things that you wish you had on a weekly basis. We know that the calendar and, fatigue and all of these different things have been keeping you from doing that. But like, what does it look like to get a structure that you can literally implement starting today? Right? Like you talk about practical here at the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. This is getting practical.
And I'm going to plug this right here, right now. We have the 6 Pillars of Intimacy monthly planner. It is a hardcover planner that you can pick up. I'll put the link here in the episode notes. It is available on Amazon. And we created this monthly planner for this. So that way you can have these weekly check-ins, these weekly rhythms with the plan of knowing that you're looking at each of your pillars of intimacy. Because it's what I have found too for myself and Elisa, we set these things up and then all of a sudden we start sort of spiraling, and what was the topic no longer is what we're discussing. We're like five points away from that, and we're not really moving forward. And maybe there's some arguments, maybe there's just some frustration, there's shutting down, there's maybe some, loud conversation. We learned to do this in a coffee shop so we could temper ourselves because we're in public, and how we are in public can sometimes be different than how we are in private. And when I say us, I'm saying that as a totality, us as the one family. And so we created this monthly planner for the purpose of you being able to go, well, how do we create this? What do we do? There are questions you can ask each other each week. But then we can start planning and looking at these pillars of intimacy so we can strengthen them. And it is a wonderful way for you, if you're going like, hey, Tony and Lisa, this is something we need to do. This may be the way that you dive into this next rhythm for your marriage. Again, I'll put the link here in the episode notes. You can also just go on over to Amazon and just go 6 Pillars of Intimacy monthly planner.
Because so many of you, and I'm glad, Tony, that you mentioned that, because so many, just over and over again, when we'd ask the question, what do you wish for? Check-ins, deeper than logistics, talking without phones, talk about realistic goals, have honest conversations. Well, if you don't put that time, like Tony said, to go deeper in the conversations, to get beyond the groceries and the sports schedules and what bills need to be paid, like you could do that with anybody. In all honesty, you could have the conversations about the groceries and the sports schedules and the bills with anyone on the planet. But where are you going deeper? Who are you talking to discuss, hey, what felt heavy this week? Or what are you proud of? Or where do you need support? How are we doing? Really, there's only one person to be having that conversation with. And sometimes we need to set aside, not sometimes, I would actually say, you guys know, any of you that have been around for a while know that the most consistent thing that Tony and I have done since 2010 is have a weekly check-in conversation. It has defined our marriage since 2010. Now, I say this often, we recorded ours. You do not have to record yours. Ours turned into the podcast. But this time that Tony and I get behind the microphones and we're having a conversation and we are looking into one another's eyes, and sometimes it's awkward and sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's really funny and sometimes we're just talking about silly stuff and sometimes we're talking about sex or parents or whatever it might be, like we've practiced it. So again, when Tony says, hey,
I would also say our intimacy lifestyle.
This conversation is actually more consistent. We have okay, let me not use the we. Let me not use the royal we. Let me use an I in that statement.
Okay.
I will say that for myself, I think this has actually been more consistent because I know, again, this is an I, not a we. I know that there have been times when I have let the intimacy lifestyle slide. We have not let any podcast weeks go by.
True.
So that's why I'm saying This is the most consistent thing.
Yeah.
Intimacy lifestyle is a close second.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's also there. That is something that we have been doing though for 17 or 18 years at this point in time, because
since 2009 intimacy lifestyle, because we did the challenge in 2008.
Yeah.
In the fall of 2008.
So 17 years, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying those two things have been consistent.
Well, and that's why intentional sexual intimacy was my number 2.
Okay, there you go.
So way to jump in there.
All right, I jumped in. Sorry.
Which is fine, because emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy, if you look at the 6 pillars in the book, the 6 pillars of intimacy, The Secret to an Extraordinary Marriage, they are the 2 pillars on either side. They are the anchor pillars on purpose, because right after all of those requests and desires for conversation, sex was like the second highest in terms of responses.
Oh, was it really?
It was.
Yep.
Right. And, when you're not intentional about your sexual intimacy, it will get squeezed out. Tiredness, obligations, late night dinners, all of those different types of things and a whole lot more will push out the consistency around your sexual intimacy. And this isn't about, and we say this all the time, it's not about Tuesday at 9:07.
No.
This is about how are we prioritizing sexual intimacy as we define it in our marriage, right? So that means the 2 of you defining it in your marriage. Is that, naked massages? Is that foreplay? Is it sexual intercourse? Like, what does that mean for you guys? Because the more you define it, the more opportunities you have to engage in it, which means that you can be more consistent with it, right? In our own marriage, and I the reason I point this out is that when it was just did we or didn't we have sex, our consistency was trashed. It was non-existent. But when we were able to expand that definition and go, hey, what counts as sexual intimacy for the 2 of us? Well, now it's this place of we have a lot more to build on. We have different ways to use that consistency to build more momentum.
And I just want to say this one thing around when we're looking at weekly intentional sexual intimacy. We have many, many episodes. Many. So I would go through, if this is an area for you where you're like, man, we want to get more consistent, and yet we're having some hiccups, we're having a couple of struggles, by all means, go through, learn, understand where we have come, what we have done, and make it work for the 2 of you. For Elisa and I, we look at this in our marriage in this way. And I think our lives this way. And I know. God comes first. Our marriage comes second. Our children come next. Our families, like family members beyond our immediate family, come next. Work, play, all the other stuff comes. Elisa and I have committed ourselves to prioritizing our marriage above everything else. Mm-hmm. And so there are times when we'd rather go do something else maybe, or look at something else. We have to, more times than not, go, is this taken away from the priority that is us? And sometimes it's a yes, and sometimes it's like, go do it. Mm-hmm. And yet other times it's like, no. And so when it looks at like a sexual intimacy area of our marriage, we prioritize this because we know the closeness and connection is vital for us and for so many of you because we hear it from you. And that's where I really believe the intimacy lifestyle, if you plan it out, that fits your marriage, will work. For some of you, it's once a week. For some of you, it's 3 times a week. For some of you, it's 3 + 1 bonus. For some of you, it's once every other week, twice every other week, whatever that may look like. But you got to be intentional around this area, just like you need to be intentional around your emotional intimacy so we can go deeper and we can strengthen our marriage.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about having a rhythm around your weekly go deeper conversations, those check-in conversations that go deeper. We've talked about having weekly intentional sexual intimacy. And then it's also really important, especially in the busyness of life, to have weekly time that feels different. Right? Like I work out of our house. So like my days, literally, I can be in the house all day. Like if I don't intentionally walk out my front door to do something more than go to the mailbox, I can literally be in the house all day. And so being in that place, and I know I'm not alone. I know a lot of you are remote, work remote, have home offices, that type of thing. But a lot of people also just fall into these rhythms where like, this is what I do, and this is just what I do, and this is how I do it, and blah, blah, blah. But that connection that comes from spending time one-on-one, getting out of, maybe it's getting out of the bedroom because that's where you guys always have your conversation, or maybe it's getting your butts off the couch because you always just sit on the couch. And so to feel different, it might be, sitting at your island having a cup of tea, or sitting on your back porch, just the two of you, but choosing to have intentional time that breaks the rhythm and creates that heart connection. Right? So it could be a date. It could be a walk and talk, going to the beach, exercising together. We met this one couple in Louisiana, and I love it because we were talking to them right after the event, and they were saying about how they were trying to figure out when they were going to like start listening to the podcast. And she's like, well, it'll probably be around like she kept asking us what time the episodes showed up, and and we're like, okay, but you can listen to them anytime. And she's like, oh, that's good, because we're usually at the gym at 4 a.m.
Yeah, it was something. I think they said they get up at early. 3 a.m. And I was like, what in the...
I was so amazed.
I was very amazed when she said that. I was like, oh my gosh, 3 a.m. I'm like, I'm dead asleep at 3 a.m. But yeah, and so everybody has that different rhythm, right? But what is it that connects the two of you in different ways throughout the week, or even throughout the month? Because some of these things, it's not like it's a weekly thing. Elise and I don't go on weekly dates. We try to at times, but for the most part, we do things here in Florida a little differently, especially when it's nice. On a Saturday afternoon, it is get out by the pool. It's winter right now, so our community pool is heated, yes. And it's wonderful. So we go over there. And we spend a few hours by the pool, sunning ourselves, reading a book, going in the water, hanging out. So we have changed things over time. For some of you, you even said, doing a devotion, praying together. Do things out of the normal so that way you guys can connect. And I get it. Some of you are like, Tony and Lisa, how do we do it? We got kids, we got this, we got that. We've been there. We've done it. We've had to find time. You can do this. Come up with the solution. This is something I think I'm realizing more and more. You have to be able to go, there is a problem. What is the solution? And not just try to land on the perfect solution, but write down 5 different solutions. What are they? And from those 5, pick the best one for you right now. It doesn't mean it's going to be forever. But if you don't come up with some solution to the problem, then we're going to just sit in the problem. And as Elise and I have said before, we are on the same team. We are on the same team. The problem is the problem. Together, we are going to figure out a solution to figure out that problem. And it can take us a little while. It doesn't always work in just one fell swoop. Sometimes it can take us a week, 2 weeks to try to maneuver and figure it out. And yet once we do, then it's like, all right, it's time to stay committed. It's time to make this into a weekly or some type of rhythm into our marriage.
Well, and there are 2 things that I just want to say in response to that. One is we started this podcast when our kids were 4 and 7. So if you're sitting there going, well, Lisa and Tony, we did our 60-day sex challenge when they were
5 and 2.
5 and 2. So just keep in mind, like, we've been there. But the other thing too is when you come with solutions, it shifts the energy. When you start prioritizing your marriage with these weekly rhythms, right? And saying, hey, you're so important. I'm putting you on my calendar in these different ways. How does that make the other person feel when they know that you want to spend time with them and you want to go deeper with them? It's a game changer.
It is. It is. All right. This is it. So this week for you guys, as we're talking about this, number 1 is figure out how you're going to go deeper with a weekly rhythm for your marriage. It may be in one pillar. It may be in a couple pillars. Whatever that looks like for you. Don't overdo it. This is what I'm going to just say real quick. Don't try to do something in every single pillar every single week. Pick 1, pick 2 that you know you can be consistent with right now, because that in itself will strengthen your marriage. Make sure you get that 6 Pillars of Intimacy monthly planner to keep you on track, and go do it. Share your hugs with us. Share how it's going. We want to share your stories with others in the One family. You guys have yourself a fantastic week. We're excited for you. Love you guys.